Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. To all my graceful audience, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm Rahmat Empowerment Wala, striving to achieve self sustainability for me and for the people alike. I'm host of this interview series named Empowering Minds. In this interview session, our our most our objective is to call upon such prestigious guests who haven't just explored their own mind powers but are trying to empower other person's minds too. To serve the purpose, we have today with us our prestigious guest Gregory Waleed Kavalec from Caribou, Maine, United States. He's known as a founder of IslamAwakened.com. We'll learn more about him in this session and talk about him more. So stay tuned with us. You are watching me on my Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, Rahmat Empowerment Wala. So let's jump to the start of the session and welcome our guest. Assalamu alaikum, Gregory Waleed Kavalec.
Alaikum assalam. Thank you for
How are you,
inviting
sir?
me. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
Uh,
Glad
thank
to
you
be here.
for thank you for being here, sir. It's a pleasure that you are sharing our screen here tonight. So, to follow the pattern, I would like you to introduce yourself so me and my audience get to know you better.
Okay, my name, as you have already said, is Gregory Waleed Kavalec. Pushing 70 years old. I was born in Ohio, here in the United States, and I am currently the founder and sole operator of islamawakened.com. I do get help from several other people, but they come and go. I'm hoping to pass the baton, as it will, over to more people who can keep the site going after Allah calls me back home. The site is a compendium of Quran translations. When I first came to Islam, I didn't know anything about Islam, but I did have the opportunity to study some English translations of the Quran, and I fell in love with the book. And it came to pass over a period of time that I had studied several different translations because my own ability to learn another language is very limited. I respect you greatly for having more than one language. I'm trying to do it using Duolingo and other tools, but it takes a long time for me. So I'm still mostly reading the Quran in English translations. I found soon that there was a website put out by the Muslim Student Association in California that had four different translations in parallel. So you pick one verse and it would show you the Yusuf Ali, it would show you the Malik, it would show you the Muhammad Assad, and it would show you even Rashid Khalifa's translation. So you see the verse in all four translations. I grabbed that and I downloaded it to a little database on my computer so that I could find it real quick. I then added a couple more, and then I added a couple more. When I got up to somewhere between 8 and 10 translations, I said, maybe I need to put this back out to the world as a website. And that was when Islam Awakened started in 2003. That, that first publication was there's 8 translations, and it has now grown with a lot of help from a lot of different people to 70 translations. And you can now start with the Arabic verse at the top and then the transliteration and then all 70 possible English translations of the verse. With some help from James Ada and a few other people, we've expanded it so that when you click on a verse, you can drill down to the Arabic and look at the root and see all the different verses that use that root. You can then see that same root concordance in other languages. We're about to add Urdu, but we've already got several others: German, French, Spanish. So if you want to know what the root is behind a word, the first page to call it the word by word version of the Quran on the site will give you a list of all the English words, the Arabic words, and the roots for those Arabic words. You can click on a root and go to the concordance. It'll show you every Arabic word in the Quran that uses that word, that root, and then for each of those words, which verses it shows up in. So we want to continue to make that tool easier and easier for people to use. And anybody who wants to send suggestions, please let us know, because making the Quran easy to read for Westerners especially is the whole purpose of the website. That's our subtitle. It's bringing the Quran to the West. And I have continued to study the Quran. I've continued to do my best to follow it in all the years since. But I need to give you some of my own past to put that into focus. Years and years ago, I was born here in the United States, not into an Islamic family. All right, I was not born Muslim. I was raised a Catholic. And I left Catholicism because I didn't really believe it, sometime around age 11. And spiritually, I wandered pretty much, not knowing much about spiritual ideas for a good part of my life. I became a computer programmer. I started out as a computer operator when I moved from Ohio to Texas, because the jobs in Ohio dried up and one of them started bouncing paychecks. Common horror story I tell. Well, anyway, moved to Texas because Houston was boomtown at that time, meaning lots and lots of jobs. Became a computer operator and moved to programmer and system programmer very rapidly, and followed the usual career path of people in IT. I moved up the chain, higher and higher rank, some people working for me. Eventually, I went and left off and did work on my own, contract work, and I started my own company. I had people working for me in the company. And I was going through, like I say, all the usual quote unquote success stories of somebody in the IT department. There came a point in time when I was going through a divorce. Okay. And back when I was a teenager and early 20s in Ohio, I drank my share. I smoked things you weren't supposed to smoke and all those kinds of things. Hadn't done that for a long time while I was moving up through my career. But there I was going through a divorce, and I was thinking, I wonder what the kids are smoking these days. Okay, I'm Greg Kavalec. It can't hurt me. Well, it could. I very quickly became addicted to a major drug that's a problem here in the United States called cocaine. Okay, especially smokable cocaine. And I spent every dime, when I went into that first session of trying drugs again in my 40s, I had a $100,000 retirement fund in my own company. And by the time it was over, I had about $800 left and no company. That's how fast drugs will take a person down. It did that to me. And I became a guest of the state of Texas. And when I say a guest of the state of Texas, I mean I didn't have a choice in the matter. They said, there's the jail cell, you're going to stay there for 6 months. Now, while I was in jail, for various reasons, I had an opportunity to leave my cell block and go attend an Islamic learning session, because it was Ramadan. And the Muslims in jail are allowed to practice Islam because that's the way they have to run things in the United States. Christians are allowed to practice Christianity, Muslims are allowed to practice Islam, etc. It was a chance to get out of the cell block, so I went for it. And I sat there, and a brother with a very beautiful voice sang the azan. Tears started rolling down my face. Okay? Literally rolling down my face. And mind you, I'm sitting here in a room full of convicted felons, but word of what just happened to me never got back to my cell block. Nobody ever mentioned it. And that's the kind of thing they would mention. Kavalec, you were crying in the class? No, that never happened. The word never got passed back that way. But I spent the rest of my time in that place reading a translation of the Quran. At the time, it was the Yusuf Ali translation, and I also happen to occasionally borrow a Pickthall translation. And I noticed some things even back then before I was released that there were differences in the translation. And some of it just didn't ring true to me. Like there's a verse that says, don't take the Jews or Christians as friends in the old Yusuf Ali translation. He has a revised edition that doesn't say that anymore, but I didn't know better. So that doesn't sound right. So after I got out of there, I started to do some more studying in other translations, and I learned that the word that he translated as friends was aliyah, okay, a wali, plural of wali. And wali is way more than friend, but in his first translation, he didn't do a very good job. Now I love the man. He brought he was one of the first ones to bring the Quran to the West. But that first edition of his translation had some discrepancies like that, things that didn't quite carry the message over. So that got me on the path of studying multiple translations of the Quran. If something doesn't sound right, what do the other translators say? And I slowly started to study a little bit of Arabic and try to understand how much of this can I get from the actual Arabic. I'm still struggling with that. I'm using a tool called Duolingo to try to improve my Arabic. I can read it reasonably clearly. I just don't know the words yet, if that makes sense. My alphabet's good. My vocabulary is not. So there's another piece of this story I don't tell everyone, but it's time I tell it all. Okay,
Thank you.
that jail that I was sitting in, that is intended to protect all of you innocent people from evil criminals like me. But it has a second purpose. It protects drug addicts like me from all the people out there selling drugs. You can't buy cocaine or alcohol in jail. And for
Excellent.
6 months, I was completely clean of that stuff. There was a problem. The person I was married to at the time, the wife I had at the time, was herself an addict, and her son, my stepson, was a dealer, was a drug dealer. So within 3 days of being out of jail, I was back on that train. Okay, I was back on the problem of doing drugs. I did not do alcohol because in my broken brain, the Quran only mentions alcohol. It doesn't mention cocaine. This is hypocrisy, but I was still enough of an addict not to realize my own hypocrisy. What the book tells us is don't take things that cover the mind, cover, not just alcohol. But I was still a cocaine addict, but I was no longer going to drink alcohol. It was not long after that I finally, with some help, found my way to an organization called Alcoholics Anonymous, and they help people with cocaine as well. That was the first step towards the best organization for this kind of help for Muslims. There's now, has been since the 1990s, before I even knew about it, an organization called Millat Islami, and the website is millatiislami.org. We also have a Facebook page. And it is for Muslims what Alcoholics Anonymous is for everybody else here in the United States. These two programs present 12 steps that a person can follow. First step is admit to yourself that you have a problem. Because somebody else can't tell us, oh, you're an alcoholic, oh, you're a drug addict. Because the answer we always give is, oh, no, I don't have a problem. I can stop anytime. We can't, okay? The way you find out that you have a problem is you try to stop and you find out you can't. So, step one, admit to yourself you have a problem. Step two, come to believe that a power greater than ourselves can restore us to sanity. In Islam, we know that power is Allah. In Alcoholics Anonymous, they just say it's your higher power, whatever you want to call him. All right. And step three is make a decision to surrender our life and our will to that higher power, to Allah. The steps after that go into more detail, but if you can do those first three steps, you never have to take another drink or another drug again. The rest of the steps help you clean up what's in here. Because what we get taught, and this has some history in Islam as well, is that these problems of drinking and drugging, or overeating, or sexual addiction, there's a number of gambling addiction, all these problems are ways that we try to hide the guilt and resentments that our Ru is throwing up to us. Okay? Every human being has some things in their past, fears, resentments, angers, guilts. These sit there and bubble in our souls. And drugs, alcohol, overeating, gambling, they drown that out a little bit. Okay? Years ago, dentists found that if they put earphones on a person that they're using the tools on and play loud music, they don't feel the pain. Well, this is the same idea. The alcohol, the drugs, the gambling, these drown out these spiritual pains that we have. But that's not the right answer. If, if you have an actual cut on your arm and you use something like those headphones to make the pain go away, it's not going to heal the cut. You have to go to a doctor. Well,
Yes.
the way to go to a doctor when you have a spiritual ill, like items from your past, is we have to talk to another human being, preferably one who has had the same problem. Both in Alcoholics Anonymous, Millat Islami, and the other 12-step programs, they continuously repeat the fact that the best help for a person in pain looking for that next drink or drug is to talk to another alcoholic or addict who's already been there. Somebody who's already fought that battle can help us get through it. But we have to talk to somebody. We have to admit our problems to Allah and to another human being. Because I can pray about it to Allah, but have I actually expressed it in clear words? I'll believe that I have, but when I actually have to look another person in the eye and say, this is what I did, or this is what happened to me, that's a completely different feeling. Okay? Now we're not alone anymore. And if you
Yes.
first go to one of these programs, you'll find the right people to get that kind of help. I'm talking too much. I'm sorry. Yeah,
No, 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 sir.
that's my
Absolutely.
history. That is my history. I can tell you other programs I'm involved with that don't have to do with drugs or the Quran. Well, there is one other one that is very much involved with the Quran. If
Go
you've
ahead,
ever
sir.
heard of iqra, it's an acronym. It's both the word in Arabic for read. It's also an acronym for the International Quran Research Association. And its founding happened a few years ago. And I was asked to say, basically, what happened was the founder asked me what would happen if instead of just collecting translations of the Quran, what would happen if we gathered a bunch of these translators live and had them share their experiences translating the Quran? Does the name Safi Kaskas mean anything to you? If not, please look him up. He's got a translation of the Quran of his own. He's done a wonderful job with it. And he basically launched that idea I just described as a conference for, it was an online conference for multiple translators of the Quran. And we held a session that spanned 2 days in the early part of July of this year. You can still find YouTube videos of that. They've also got another set of videos that are the individual translators. But if you go to IslamAwakened.com, there's a link to those YouTube videos about halfway down the page. Please watch what these wonderful scholars have to say about the effort it takes to properly translate the Quran. The effort is going to be made later, early next year, to bring them together again, but to discuss things like how does artificial intelligence apply to the concept of translating the Quran? Can we use it? And I think that's a very controversial topic, but it should be controversial. We need to get people to think. If you and I argue a point, doesn't mean we're mad at each other. We are trying to get to the truth. And I think this is one truth we need to get to, because artificial intelligence, or AI as they call it this day, is filling this world up. Everybody's got a version of it. It'll be interesting to follow. And of course, I'm a computer professional, so I'm studying it as well.
Sir, how do you think it's controversial? Uh,
In my mind, it's controversial because we as human beings are weak and we seem to seek shiraka when we're not even think we're looking for it. I've seen a joke meme going around a long time ago. It had a headdress over the top of a computer monitor, and it was labeled "Shake Google." And I can see the danger of people thinking that artificial intelligence can be a great shake. I don't believe in that, because a good shake understands human nature. It doesn't just know the words, or he or she doesn't know the words. Artificial intelligence is right now, it may change in the future, but artificial intelligence is really just a label for what they call a large language model. If you put
okay.
enough language into it, it can find all the ways words properly go together. I saw an excellent graph of this in animation years ago when they were just talking about, they weren't even talking about artificial intelligence. They were talking about translation, computer translation. And they showed the effectiveness of 5 different programs at translating a foreign language into English. And then they said, well, we fed it more data, more words. And it follows the graph on how accurate they were. And the lowest running, the poorest translator with just a few words, eventually went to the top of the graph. And the other ones only went about halfway, because that model was the best if you gave it enough words. It was a word processing program. Okay? How do these words fit together? Today's artificial intelligence is very similar. It looks at how words in its huge database normally fit together. So when you ask a question, it looks for all the places that question has been discussed and tries to put together the words that fit your question best. Does it know what it's doing? No, it does not know what it's doing. Computers don't know things, they repeat them. A computer is just a very, very complicated parrot. It can do math, okay? Parents can't really do calculus, and a computer can. But today's AI does not have a mind. It only can mimic a mind. And that's where I think the danger is. I know that it's not a mind, but even I can get fooled. How did it know that? It doesn't know it. It repeated it from something someone put in it. But we have people that won't think about that, sadly. They will look, oh, this thing's so smart, and they'll follow its lead. And following the lead, blindly following the leads of others, is a great danger for the entire human race. Every time a dictator rises to power, there are people who love him and think he's going to save their nation. And it doesn't work that way. You know, sometimes benign dictatorships run fine, but they always end very poorly. And
True,
we're
sir.
seeing that all over the world.
Yes. So you are saying that AI is, a lot of data has been collected and put in a single drive, where when we ask a question and then data comes out of that drive and give us our
Yes,
answer in a in a
English
mannered way.
format. Yeah, it
Yeah,
can imitate English or other languages. It is good at that. I mean, but we've had computer programs that could play a game of bridge against an expert bridge player, cards, if you know about bridge, or chess. It's been, it was, I think, 5, 10 years ago, computer beat the best chess player in the world.
right.
But does it know what a game of chess is? It certainly doesn't feel like it knows anything, but it makes strong moves because they took all the recorded chess. They didn't just tell it how the pieces move. They took all the recorded chess games that we have records of back when they were only in books and further back than that. And they fed those into the program and said, if you find yourself in this situation, this is the best move. For a human being
So
to
it's
do
like,
that, we would call him a genius. But for a machine to do it, it's just mechanical. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
no, no, sir. So it's like that now the data has been trained very well. That data knows when to come out and where to come out, and which data has to come out and show to the user.
Exactly. Exactly.
Excellent. So thank you for letting me understand this thing.
And I'm not an expert on AI, so this is my own humble opinion, but I have been a computer programmer for many, many years. And that is how all these programs do what they do. Some of them are cleverly written, but some of the cleverness is the programmer and not the computer.
Excellent sum up, sir. Excellent sum up. Sir, I heard your story, and one question arose in my mind, so I'm asking you this. So,
Right?
you talked about your dark age and the addiction you had. So,
Yes.
you came out of it, of that addiction and dark age of yours. So, was it because of the introduction of Allah to you?
For
Was it
me,
your willpower that you get out of?
it was a law that opened the door for me. Okay. I had heard the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous before. It didn't register with me. It didn't mean much to me. Okay. That third step, surrender your life and your will to your higher power. It didn't click with me. I was not a believer in anything. I won't call myself an atheist, but I didn't care about that side of life. I didn't pay attention to it. I wasn't a churchgoer, et cetera, and so forth. Well, once that event happened to me in prison, when I felt something touch my soul that day and spent the rest of my time behind bars reading translations of the Quran. When I fell back into addiction after coming out of there, but it didn't take that long for me to realize this is going to lead to my death. Okay? You have a little bit of sense sometimes. There's moments of clarity, we call them. And I realized I need to find an AA meeting. And I don't say that I call that willpower. It's because I could still see the little light in the crack in the door that Allah had opened for me. Because otherwise, I would have completely rejected the idea of AA. But now I went literally walking a half mile down the road to the nearest Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, and I started attending. They recommend people go to 90 meetings in 90 days, and I probably got closer to 200 meetings in the next 90 days, but I never touched drugs since. Okay. And it was the program that helped me ask Allah for help in the way I needed to. Okay. I've said it before. We can pray our five. Okay. But just praying our five isn't enough. We have to know what to do about the garbage in our own souls. It's in there from our childhood, from events that have happened after we grew up, things we've done wrong, things people have done wrong to us. mistakes we've made, guilts we have, all that is sitting there. And, you know, we talk about the light of Allah, okay, but all those things that are deep in our soul, they're negative, they're like mud on our windshield. We can't see the road clearly forward if that mud's on our windshield. And following the steps of Millat Islami or Alcoholics Anonymous, it's the same 12 steps in all the programs. Following those steps, admitting our problems to another human being and to Allah one at a time, we can get that mud cleared off of our windshield. And that is really a blessing to anybody who's ever been in that situation. People, I'm going to use some semi-harsh language here. People go to mosque or people go to church to find God or Allah. People go to Alcoholics Anonymous or Millat Islami to find Allah, but they've already had their tails burned in the fires of hell. Okay? They're running a little faster to get to Allah. I can tell you that from personal experience. I have had I have had my tail feathers burned by the efforts of the shaitan. And when I walked into that Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, I knew I was seeking my higher power, Allah.
Excellent, sir. Excellent. So you have said that Islam Awakened has been founded 20 years. It has been 20 years. So I want
Yes.
to know how impactful you think this step of yours has been in these 20 years.
Well, it's continuing to take care of myself with the 12 steps has kept me from even considering going back to where I was. One of the important steps is right at the end. Having reached a spiritual awakening through the use of these steps, we make an effort to help other alcoholics, other addicts, and other people as we move through life. You have to learn all these steps, you have to practice them, and the last step is find another alcoholic or find another addict and help them. And I've been doing my best to do that. And that isn't Islam Awakened, that is Malati Islami. But Islam Awakened has helped me stay focused on my Islam because to work it, I have to keep reading the Quran in one translation or another, or it won't grow. For me, the two projects are obviously tightly linked in my heart. For other people, they're studying Malati Islami because they have a past, but Islam Awakened is just a useful tool. Other people study Islam Awakened because they want to study the Quran, and Malati Islami, they would never need to go there because they're not addicted or alcoholics. For most people, they're two completely different projects. For me, obviously, I have to keep them both going.
Excellent, sir. Sir, I wanted to know how many visitors are there on monthly basis or yearly basis, or how many visitors have been visited Islam Awakened and have fruitful
Total, I
experience.
don't know. It's usually been somewhere between 40,000 and 50,000 a month.
Excellent, mashallah, sir. Excellent.
I want that to grow because I want more people to try to read the Quran. Every time we see negative news about Islam on the TV or the internet, it's interesting. There's an uptick in people going there because what are these crazy Muslims doing this for? And I'll read the actual Quran and find out that that's not Islam what you're seeing on TV. It's important for them to learn that. There was thousands of people after 9/11 who joined Islam because they wanted to find out why did these evil Muslims crash those planes in New York. They went and they read the Quran and they realized this isn't anything about killing people. This is a good book. And they came to Islam. It's amazing how Allah could do that.
Excellent, sir. And sir, the Iqra venture from yours, how is it different from Islam Awakened?
Iqra, it's really the venture was started by Safi Kaskas and a few other scholars. Okay, he originally asked me about the idea, of instead of just collecting translations, what if we brought translators together? Actually brought the human beings who did this translation and brought them together in one place for a conference. Well, then COVID-19 came around and the idea of an actual conference went away, but we realized we have tools like this one. We were using Zoom and we did the conference in Zoom. So I was more than happy to help him put that together, and he has a number of assistants. I have now joined the executive committee of ICRA. I'm not on the executive board. I don't want to try to inflate my head that way. But yes, when they need to get something done, I'll use my skills in whatever way I can. The actual website, iqra.study, is down for maintenance right now. It should be back up here soon, probably by tomorrow. Just
Inshallah.
in case any of your viewers are trying to go there now, that's why.
Inshallah, sir. Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Sir, thank you so much for your time. In last, I would ask you my favorite question, which I often ask to my guests. What advice would you give to a 30 or 35 years younger version of yourself that 35 years ago I would have done that certain thing, now my situation would be different? I'm asking you this because if someone's watching us of that age, so he or she can apply your advice to his or her life, and then he or she reaches your age, he won't have that regret.
Okay. If we're talking about a student in high school or university, spend more time on homework. All right, that sounds like a bland piece of advice, but I didn't do that when I was in my youth. Okay, I did not understand that homework was not just a way for the teachers to steal my free time. Homework is calisthenics for the mind. All right, in my prayer room, I have several weights and I work out on a regular basis to keep myself healthy. Well, homework is that same thing for the muscles we have up here. And if we don't do those calisthenics, it's not going to get stronger. Now, if we're talking after high school and college, getting into your career, that will be mostly a matter of how well you can focus and what do you know about what you like to do. Because the two things that a good professional, if he wants to achieve greatness in the dunya, has to do, and that's right and proper in your Islamic path, is personal improvement, personal development, I mean, and helping others. Okay? If you can do those two things, personal growth and accomplishment, but the main accomplishment is helping others. Find people to mentor. Okay? If, if I want to learn a new branch of mathematics, all right, that I don't know very well yet, I don't really know it unless I can explain it to you. Okay? If I meet another student, whether it be young or old, that wants to learn it, and I can sit there and tell them what I've learned and guide them through those first few steps, that's strengthening the muscle in my brain. It's the opposite of physical calisthenics. If I help you lift a weight, I'm not getting stronger. This kind of weight, if I help you lift it, I am getting stronger. So, personal growth. Don't ever stop learning and accomplishment. Get things done that help other people. You will be known by other people when you do that. You don't have to get on top of the roof and yell everybody, "Hey, look what I did." No, it'll come to be known.
Excellent pieces of advice, sir. Excellent. Thank you so much. Sir, lastly, any message for the whole Muslim nation?
The whole Muslim nation. Stop feeding into any kind of extremism. And when you see it, walk away from it. That is our greatest, we call it an albatross in Western literature. Because sailors, when a Guy killed a bird that was supposed to be good luck for the ship. They made him wear it around his neck while it was rotting. Well, the albatross that the Ummah is wearing right now are extremists doing things in the name of Islam that have nothing to do with Islam. Walk away from extremism whenever you see it. And if there's a place to report it, report it. Islam is what we find in the Quran, and study that. You'll find there's no call for killing innocent people or starting wars. The only time we're ever supposed to be in a war is defending against an attacker. And let me shut up then because I'll get on a soapbox and start ranting.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
sir Gregory Waleed Kavalec, for being here and sharing us pearls of wisdom and pearls of knowledge. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time here.
Thank you for inviting me. May Allah bless all of us.
Ameen, Ameen. Thank you so much. My grateful audience, you were watching Gregory Waleed Kavalec, and I hope you have learned so many new things from him. I've learned myself. I'll see you next time in next session. Keep watching Empowering Minds. You were watching me on my YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Rahmat Empowerment Wala. I'll see you next time. Take care. Allah Hafiz.
Masalam.